I've divided this chart up into the different kinds of targets for parasympathetic and sympathetic fibers. So I'll just kind of walk you through it a little bit. I mean, it is fairly self-explanatory. But what I thought this is a lot of information, and you can try organizing it in different ways. One thing I thought would be helpful is to separate out all of the all of the glands first. So if you think about the smooth muscle that's around all these glands, then what happens? The salivary glands are stimulated by the facial and the glossopharyngeal nerves, which means that the smooth muscle is contracted. And then notice that the sympathetic effects are all of the opposite. So if you are in a crisis, you would expect to have a dry mouth and dry eyes. The pancreatic glands are important in digesting food, so accordingly the parasympathetic fibers stimulate all aspects of that. Sweat glands are not innervated by parasympathetic fibers. You're going to see that a lot. If there's a blank spot on the chart, it means there's not any or very much innervation by parasympathetic fibers, or the other way around. Or it could just be that it wasn't a big enough detail for me to put on this chart, because I do try to simplify for you. Okay, then the gastric glands would be secreting more hydrochloric acid, and the intestinal glands would be secreting more mucus and various enzymes to help with the digestive processes. Now, I think that your page has a little more than mine, so if you already have this on there, that's fine, but I always like to think of the adrenal gland is your stress gland. And it is stimulated by the sympathetic fibers to release epinephrine and norepinephrine. And those go into the blood, and they enhance all aspects of fight or flight as hormones. So you have a nervous stimulation of all of these structures, and then a longer lasting hormonal stimulation, because norepinephrine and epinephrine can bind to adrenergic receptors as they come through the blood too. Okay, then let's look at the next category. I'm going to use a yellow highlighter for smooth muscle around blood vessels. So basically this whole area deals with what happens to the blood vessels. Notice that there is not innervation, no innervation, meaning no nerve, no parasympathetic fibers go there, but there are certainly sympathetic fibers that go to skin blood vessels, and during fight or flight they're constricted, and specifically by a type of alpha adrenergic receptor. Okay, that's skin blood vessels. And then kidney blood vessels are also constricted during a crisis, so you're not going to make as much urine. There will be a decrease in urine output. The skeletal muscles that are being worked out, if they're working. So your autonomic nervous system can also adjust. If you're running, then there's going to be greater dilation of the skeletal muscle blood vessels in your quads than, let's say, in your biceps. Or if you are just lifting barbells, there's going to be more dilation in your biceps than in your quads. It's not all of your skeletal muscles will have dilated blood vessels at the time, just the ones that need it. And then the heart blood vessels are also called the coronary arteries, and these will dilate. Now, I often have students get confused because it says beta 2. The coronary arteries they're blood vessels on the heart, so they need to dilate And the dilation can occur by this type of receptor, a beta-2 adrenergic receptor. If norepinephrine binds to a beta-2 adrenergic receptors, dilation of a blood vessel, dilation of a bronchiole will occur. That is different than the beta-1 adrenergic receptors that are found on the muscle cells on the cardiac muscle fibers. Coronary arteries have smooth muscle around them, not cardiac muscle around them. And then sexual function. During arousal, both the penis and the clitoris become engorged with blood because the blood vessels dilate, and then erection can occur. And you notice that that is primarily parasympathetic. You'll see that for climax and orgasm, we get sympathetic involved. In order to have a successful sexual experience, you need to have both parasympathetic and sympathetic effects working. For women, this can be really important in that if they are not able to relax enough, then they're not going to be able to even get aroused and then not be able to achieve an orgasm. Okay, then we'll use orange for other smooth muscle sites. Kind of just a catch-all down here for a bunch of different other areas. I want to talk specifically about the bronchioles. So they notice that there's no innervation here parasympathetically. That's actually not true. Whoops. It would cause a constriction of the airways. So I'm going to write that. Constriction. And this would be via cholinergic, right? I guess I don't need to write that again. But very key here is that there are beta-2 adrenergic receptors on the bronchioles, and so when they release norepinephrine onto them, the bronchiole smooth muscle will relax and there will be dilation, which will increase airflow. During fight or flight, you need this, right? You want more oxygen being delivered down to your lungs. Whereas during rest and digest, the bronchioles will be constricted to prevent debris or hyperventilation from occurring. If someone's having an asthma attack and they have constriction of the airways or maybe inflammation of the airways, then sometimes, they usually will carry like an EpiPen for a serious case of an allergic attack or a really bad asthma attack, and then that epinephrine will bind to the beta-2 adrenergic receptors and dilate the bronchioles to hopefully increase airflow for that person. And then around the stomach and intestines, it's parasympathetic that's going to cause resting and digesting. Remember, that's the whole catchphrase. And it's inhibited by fight or flight. Around the uterus, you can have stimulation of the uterus in order to either move out a baby or move out blood each month during a period. Then the erector pili of the skin are controlled by the sympathetic nervous system. And then again, here we have a smooth muscle around the penis and the clitoris and actually other reproductive organs like the uterus, and I do have vagina on here. So orgasm actually is smooth muscle contraction. For a guy, it starts at the vas deferens and goes all the way up and around the bladder, and then rhythmic contractions that propel the semen out of the penis. And for a female, orgasm will be rhythmic contractions of the vagina and up into the uterus. And then around the bladder, parasympathetic will stimulate the contractions of the bladder to let you know that you need to go, although you have voluntary muscle control of those muscles so that you don't go unless you choose to. And then cardiac muscle is a category of its own. Cardiac muscle is slowed down and the force of contraction, so we could say decreased contractility. And we increase heart rate, blood pressure, etc., via beta 1 adrenergic receptors that are on the cardiac muscle. Okay, so during fight or flight, norepinephrine goes onto beta 1 adrenergic receptors of the cardiac muscle, makes the heart beat faster and harder. At the same time, norepinephrine is going on to beta 2 adrenergic receptors on the smooth muscles of the coronary arteries and inhibiting those smooth muscles so that you get a dilation, so you get more blood flow to the cardiac muscle, which needs it for the extra work. Okay, then in adipose tissue, I think you have these words already. Lipogenesis will occur due to parasympathetic stimulation, so that's fat storage. Lipolysis will occur during fight or flight. In the liver, glycogenesis will occur, which will store glycogen for the next time you're going to exercise. And your liver is also capable of lipogenesis. A healthy liver should not store a lot of fat in it, but in America today, many people that maybe aren't even overweight don't realize it, but that they have something called fatty liver disease, where they've eaten so many carbohydrates for so many years that over and above what their body needs, that they start converting those to triglycerides and storing them in their liver. And then the opposite effects occur during fight or flight. Glycogenolysis is going to break down the glycogen. Gluconeogenesis is going to make new sugar to put into the bloodstream so you have enough for the powerful moves you might need. And then also, if there has been fat stored in the liver, then lipolysis will be occurring in the liver to break that down and get those fatty acids out into the blood where they can be used.